So you have $10,000 to spend and you want to buy your first car, which just so happens to be Japanese. Well, look no further because in this video, I'll be going over 10 of the best Japanese cars that are reliable, fun, and most importantly, look good and are reliable for $10,000. Before I get into it though, please be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on post notifications because I post videos like this every single day, and drop a comment down below and tell me what your favorite Japanese vehicle ever built is. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Coming up in the number 10 spot is a vehicle that's generic, but not generic in a bad way. Generic as in they're everywhere and they're cheap and they're great vehicles. It is the 8th generation Honda Civic Si. These come with a 2-liter inline 4, which pumps at 197 horsepower paired to a 6-speed manual, sending the power to the front wheels. Not only do these vehicles look good, but they have a lot of aftermarket support, they're very reliable, and you can find them anywhere between $4,000 to $7,000. But hey, maybe you don't want a Civic because they're pretty generic and it seems like everyone has them. Well, how about you get an Infiniti G35? These vehicles are pretty much rebadged Nissan 350Zs. They come with V6s that sound absolutely horrible, but they're reliable, they're fun, and they're decent for tuning, but they're also rear-wheel drive. You can also get them as all-wheel drive, but rear-wheel drive just adds to the driving experience, and you can get these with a 6-speed manual. And they also have many luxury features as well as a lot of aftermarket support. So you can do a ton with these vehicles, whether you want it to be a fun daily driver, you want to turn it into a stance car or a tuner car. These have so much potential, and right now you can find them between $3,000 and $9,000, of course, depending on the condition. And coming up in the number 8 spot is probably not a good first car, but I'm putting it on this list anyway because they're really fun to drive. It is the Mazda RX8. These vehicles honestly suck. They're unreliable, but in my opinion, they look really good, they're very unique, and they have rotary engines, which is something that literally no new vehicle has at all. These are essentially successors to the Mazda RX-7, which is a very famous sports car, and the RX-8 just really captures everything that made the RX-7 good and slightly improved on it. However, they are unfortunately very unreliable, and their engines usually only last around 60,000 miles before needing a rebuild. But if you can look past that, these are very good vehicles and they have a lot of aftermarket support. And coming up in the number 7 spot is another kind of unreliable car. It is the Subaru WRX Blob-Eye. These cars aren't necessarily unreliable. They're only unreliable because the people who own them don't seem to maintain them good, and they try to make way too much power with these vehicles when they just simply cannot handle it. However, you can find them extremely cheap nowadays for around $6,000, which does seem like a lot of money, but you're getting an amazing rally car. These are great daily drivers, and they're great for the winter too because they come with all-wheel drive. They also have a 6-speed manual and a boxer 4-cylinder, which sounds absolutely amazing. And while they're not the fastest, in my opinion, they look really good. They have a ton of aftermarket support, so if you're into modding vehicles, these are some of the best that you can get. And next up in the number 6 spot is the Mazda MX-5 Miata NC. I know a lot of people hate these vehicles and say that they're ugly, but in my opinion, they actually look really good. I love the NC Miata just because it takes what made the N8 great, made the NB even better, and then improved on it in so many different ways. The looks, in my opinion, they look like almost bloated NB Miatas, but not bloated in a bad way. They just look like better vehicles and more modern, which I think is what really made Japanese vehicles special, is because they all look so futuristic and they always age beautifully. And I think the NC, as of right now, it just looks beautiful. They have a ton of aftermarket support and they're slow, but they handle amazing. They're really lightweight and they are quite small, but unlike the NA and NB, these are a little bigger, so if you're taller, they're definitely easier to fit in than one of the earlier generations, while still being relatively small and being very lightweight and fun to drive. And coming up in the number 5 spot is the Nissan 350Z. This vehicle is pretty much the same as a G35, but less luxurious and a lot more sporty. These cars are true dedicated sports cars, and I think they look absolutely beautiful. I know it's a kind of unpopular opinion, but they're really good cars. They're quite reliable. They don't have the best tuning potential, but you can still do some things with these vehicles, and they look good. You can wide body them, and that just really makes the vehicles pop more, which I think is what the Z line really excels in. It's just standing out from all the other generic vehicles on the road. These are great vehicles, reliable, and you can find them for around $7,000 in decent condition. And next up in the number 4 spot, we have the Mazda Speed 3 first and second generations. The Mazda 3 has had many generations, however, the Speed 3 specifically, I'm talking about the first generation, and then I don't know if it's a second generation or just a facelift, but either way, these two Mazda Speed 3s, they're great vehicles, they're fast, they're fun, sporty, and practical. You can also find them relatively cheap at right around $4,000, but that's not what makes these cars special. They're special because no other brand has made a car that looks as good and is as fun to drive as these. I mean, obviously there's the GTI, but they haven't really improved as much over the years, whereas the Mazda Speed 3 was a great fighter against the GTI, and in my opinion, it is a better vehicle. They're extremely reliable, and not only that, but they've aged really well, like many Mazdas do. They look great even nowadays, and they have a lot of aftermarket support, so you can bring them even more into the modern era. And coming up in the number 3 spot is the 4th generation Mitsubishi Eclipse, available with either a 4-cylinder or a V6. These cars are great sports cars. They're front-wheel drive, which I guess is kind of a downside, but also not that big of a deal. And they also come with a 6-speed manual and front-wheel drive, which is honestly really cool. These are truly dedicated sports cars. They have a great heritage, and it's really unfortunate that Mitsubishi decided to throw the Eclipse name on a crossover. But I think we can all look past that for a minute and just admire what the Eclipse was once. And it is such a good vehicle. They're very reliable, fun to drive, and you can find them really cheap. The 4-cylinders are of course cheaper, especially with an automatic transmission. However, if you can get a V6 and a manual, that is so, like, it's an amazing driving experience, and I highly recommend getting one. But really only if you can find it with a manual transmission. And of course the V6 is better, but there's also nothing wrong with a 4-cylinder. And next up in the number 2 spot, we have the Acura RSX Type S. These vehicles have appreciated in price, especially over the past like 1 or 2 months. I find they've gotten so expensive because everyone seems to be talking about these. They're great vehicles. They come with Honda's best engine ever built, in my opinion, is the K20A2, which pumps out 200 horsepower paired to a 6-speed manual, sending all the power to the front wheels. These cars are very reliable, fun to drive, and they have great history because technically they are Acura Integras. However, over in America, these were sold, or I guess over here, I don't know why I said over in America. Over here, in North America, they were sold as the RSX. However, in Japan and I think a few other European countries, these were actually sold as the DC5 Acura Integra. I love these cars, they look great, they have a lot of aftermarket support and tons of tuning potential. And finally, in the number 1 spot is a car that none of you were expecting. It is the Mitsubishi Lancer Rally Art 10. If you've ever wanted an Evo, but you just couldn't afford one, get a Rally Art. They're detuned Evos with, I mean, they're not, but they're pretty similar. They have turbocharged 4-cylinders, they make good power, and they're fun to drive, which is really what makes Mitsubishis, especially old ones, not new ones, they suck now, but old Mitsubishis, this is what really made them special, is that they had all these crazy variants like the Eclipse GSX, Galant VR4, and the Evo. And also, the Lancer Rally Art, it's a great vehicle. You can find them for right around $9,000 nowadays. They've really gone up in price. You can find a kind of beat up one for around like $4,000 or $5,000, but I honestly wouldn't recommend buying one at that price. You really want to, with these vehicles, you want to buy the more expensive one because what you get with that money is so much more quality, and that's what makes these vehicles so amazing, is that if they were taken care of, they're extremely reliable. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what your favorite car on the list is, or tell me what your favorite JDM car is, and have a good day.